I was very, very straight about our policy. As you know, zero illegal migrants. That was our government's policy for 8 years. Zero means not even one. Not even one if it's illegal. If you want to come to Poland, that was very straight. If you want to come to Poland, you can come. We are not North Korea.
What began as scattered reports of migrants gathering near the border with Belarus quickly escalated into a crisis that Polish leaders described as something far more calculated than spontaneous migration. The warning from Warsaw was stark. This was not merely a humanitarian challenge, but a prelude to a broader destabilization effort unfolding at the edge of the European Union.
Poland and Hungary was not satisfied with the proposal, but they pushed us through, pushed through the proposal. So Hungary and Poland was totally left out of that. So after this, there is no any chance to have any kind of compromise and agreement on migration.
Poland's government accused Belarusian authorities of orchestrating a deliberate operation. Migrants from the Middle East and Africa were reportedly flown into Minsk, transported toward the border, and encouraged to cross into EU territory. Many had paid significant sums, often between $8,000 and $12,000, with promises of safe passage into Europe. Instead, they found themselves stranded in freezing woodlands, caught between Belarusian forces pushing them westward and Polish guards refusing entry.
Poland always been this way, Dominic.
This is what is needed to understand why we cherish our freedom so much. Because of Russia, because of Germany, historically, Poland did not exist for 123 years. We gained our independence back in 1918. So after that, after 1918, we had a little bit of freedom. But then in 1939, Germany and Russia attacked.
Both fronts.
Both. And we had this terrible communism in Poland for 70 years.
The situation intensified rapidly. Polish riot police deployed tear gas and water cannons after clashes erupted at the frontier. Stones were thrown, barriers were tested, tensions mounted not only along the border, but across Europe's political landscape. Warsaw described the crisis as a form of hybrid warfare, an attempt to exploit migration as a strategic weapon. The accusation was directed squarely at Belarusian leader Alexander Lukashenko, a close ally of Russian President Vladimir Putin.
You can come and work, you can be legally. So you have to prove who you are, you have to submit your documents, you have to ask for a visa, then you will have permission to stay for 3 or 6 months or a year or whatever. And that's fine. If you pay taxes, if you want to contribute to our society, we don't mind. But it's up to us if we want to.
For Poland, the crisis struck at the heart of national sovereignty. Local communities near the border spoke of fear and uncertainty as makeshift camps appeared in nearby forests. Border guards were stretched thin. Humanitarian groups struggled to access those stranded in the exclusion zones. The European Union expressed concern, but Poland moved quickly, signaling that it would take primary responsibility for securing its frontier.
People from all around the world, many third world countries, illegal migration as well, lots of people coming from predominantly Islamic countries as well. What's the difference then between Eastern European migrants and migrants from the rest of the world? Why don't they, in your mind, assimilate or convene like Eastern Europeans?
Well, first of all, if there are migrants in such big numbers as they are here into the UK or in other countries, my first decision would be to assimilate them.
The first major measure was physical. A 5.5-meter-high steel barrier stretching approximately 186 kilometers along the Belarusian border became the cornerstone of Poland's response. The structure, completed at a cost of roughly $350 million, was equipped with motion sensors, surveillance cameras, and monitoring systems designed to detect even small movements in remote areas. It transformed a porous woodland boundary into a fortified line. Alongside the barrier, Poland established a 60-kilometer buffer zone restricting access to journalists, aid workers, and civilians. Officials argued that limiting entry was necessary to prevent interference with security operations. Critics, including human rights organizations, countered that the zone hindered humanitarian assistance, particularly for women and children caught between borders. By late 2024, the Polish government estimated that border security expenditures could reach the equivalent of $2.5 billion over several years. In December of that year, the European Commission allocated an additional 52 million euros to strengthen surveillance infrastructure along Poland's eastern border, acknowledging the broader European implications of the standoff. Poland's approach evolved further in March 2025, when a new law temporarily suspended the right to apply for asylum for individuals crossing illegally from Belarus. By 2022, Poland was allocating approximately 2.4% of its GDP to defense, ranking among the highest in NATO, with border security contributing to that total.
Immigrant is not welcome in Poland. This is what we promised, and these words will be kept. Basically, we are not talking about people who are in need. We are not talking about Muslims. We are talking about a law, international law and Polish law. We don't want any illegal migration in Poland. This is what we promised. This is why our government was elected, and not even one Muslim illegal migrant will come to Poland, ever.
The results, according to official statistics, were dramatic. Within a year of completing the barrier and intensifying patrols, irregular crossings fell sharply. Authorities reported a reduction exceeding 99% compared to peak months in 2021. In 2022 alone, over 40,000 attempted crossings were prevented. By 2024, successful entries were counted in the hundreds rather than the thousands. The Polish border guard regularly published updated figures, presenting the data as evidence of regained control. Yet the human dimension remained complex. Reports surfaced alleging excessive force at the border, including the use of rubber bullets, zip ties, and pushbacks into marshlands. Some migrants described being compelled to return to Belarus rather than pursue asylum in Poland, hoping to seek entry elsewhere in the EU. In 2024, 2 fatalities were recorded along the border, down from 18 the previous year, though critics argued that reduced attempts may have reflected fear rather than improved conditions. Poland's migration policy, running through 2030 under the title Regain Control, Ensure Safety, reflects a broader recalibration. This demographic reality explains an apparent paradox. Even as Poland tightened its eastern border, it remained one of the EU's largest issuers of residence permits to non-EU nationals. In 2021, Poland granted nearly 1 million first residence permits, more than any other member state and roughly 1/3 of the EU total. The government emphasized that migration was welcome when conducted legally and aligned with labor market needs.
The lowest unemployment in European Union is Poland. The highest GDP after COVID in European Union is Poland. One of the lowest debts in European Union is Poland. So don't give us this rubbish about the need of educated immigration, as we heard yesterday. We don't need your doctors. We don't need your engineers. Take them all, and pay for them.
Transformation is striking for a country historically defined by emigration. After the Second World War, tens of thousands of Polish soldiers and civilians settled in the United Kingdom. A new wave followed Poland's accession to the EU in 2004, as workers sought opportunities across Western Europe. Today, that flow has slowed and return migration has increased, even as Poland becomes a destination rather than a departure point. The geopolitical context further complicates the narrative. In 2022, following Russia's invasion of Ukraine, Poland opened its borders to millions of Ukrainian refugees. At the European level, policy shifts began to reflect lessons drawn from Poland's experience. Between 2023 and 2024, the EU pursued agreements with transit countries such as Tunisia, Libya, and Morocco aimed at preventing migrants from reaching European shores. These externalization strategies sought to manage migration flows before they arrived at EU borders, echoing Poland's emphasis on deterrence and upstream control. Poland also looked outward for models. Its planned point-based system for labor migration mirrors approaches used by Australia, Canada, and New Zealand, prioritizing skills aligned with economic needs. The objective is selective openness, maintaining strict controls against irregular entry while facilitating legal pathways for workers who contribute to the economy. The Polish-Belarusian crisis underscores a broader question facing Europe: how to balance security, sovereignty, and humanitarian obligations in an era of complex migration pressures. Poland's strategy demonstrated that decisive action, substantial investment, and sustained political commitment can dramatically reduce irregular crossings. Yet it also highlighted ethical dilemmas and diplomatic tensions that accompany hardline measures.
I think it's a not good situation when the people from Africa came. These people don't want assimilate, for example, with Polish people or French.
How will you vote in?
Poland enters the latter half of the decade. Its border remains heavily guarded by thousands of soldiers, border guards, and police officers. Surveillance systems hum quietly across forested terrain. The steel barrier stands as both a physical structure and a symbol of policy resolve. Whether viewed as necessary protection or excessive fortification depends largely on perspective. The story does not conclude neatly. Migration routes shift, political alliances evolve, economic needs persist. What remains clear is that the events of 2021 reshaped Poland's approach to migration and influenced debates across the continent. The forests along the eastern frontier became more than a boundary. They became a testing ground for Europe's future direction. The question that lingers is not simply whether the strategy worked, but at what price and under what circumstances it can be replicated. Europe's migration landscape continues to shift, shaped by conflict, climate change, economic disparity, and political calculation. Poland's response stands as one chapter in a much larger narrative, one that continues to unfold along the continent's edges. That larger narrative stretches far beyond the forests of eastern Poland. It arcs southward to the Mediterranean, where another frontline state has wrestled for years with the strain of migration arriving by land and sea. If Poland's crisis unfolded in dense woodland under freezing skies, Greece's has played out across sun-bleached islands and turbulent waters, with consequences that have reshaped its politics, economy, and international standing.
By safety. Why is safety connected to Muslim? Explain that to me.
First of all, that's very clear, very simple. In Germany, over 200,000 of so-called refugees just vanished, disappeared. Nobody knows who are they, where are they, and what are they going to do. Nobody knows. 200,000 people. Can you imagine how many people is that? It's just crazy.
Greece occupies a unique geographic position. Its eastern islands lie only a few kilometers from Turkey's coast, making them a natural gateway into the European Union. During the height of the migration wave in 2015 and 2016, hundreds of thousands of people crossed the Aegean Sea in small boats, seeking refuge from war and instability in Syria, Afghanistan, Iraq, and beyond. Camps such as Moria on the island of Lesbos became symbols of Europe's struggle to manage migration humanely and effectively. Overcrowding, inadequate sanitation, and prolonged asylum procedures created conditions widely criticized by humanitarian organizations. The destruction of Moria by fire in 2020 further exposed the fragility of the system. Greece found itself balancing international obligations with limited resources, all while emerging from a decade-long financial crisis that had strained public services and social cohesion. Unlike Poland's 2021 confrontation, Greece's challenge was not framed as hybrid warfare in the same direct sense, though tensions with Turkey frequently flared. In early 2020, after Ankara announced it would no longer prevent migrants from traveling toward Europe, thousands gathered along the Evros land border between Greece and Turkey. Greek authorities responded with reinforced patrols, temporary suspension of asylum applications, and accelerated construction of fencing along key stretches of the frontier. The episode demonstrated how migration could quickly become entangled with broader geopolitical disputes.
Referendum on illegal migration.
Because this is one of the main topics, not only in Poland, but also in Europe, especially because of the hybrid attack on our border from east, and this is purposely made by Putin and Lukashenko. If we are accepting someone from outside at the cost of our basis, cultural basis, this is disaster. It's a simple way to make war, domestic war, and this is stupid. And of course, politicians sometimes are very stupid.
Over time, Greece expanded its border infrastructure, extending steel fencing and deploying advanced surveillance technologies similar to those adopted in Poland. Thermal cameras, motion sensors, and aerial monitoring systems were introduced to track crossings along both land and maritime routes. The Greek Coast Guard intensified patrols in the Aegean, intercepting boats and transferring passengers to reception facilities for processing. Critics alleged pushbacks at sea. Greek officials denied systematic wrongdoing and emphasized their duty to protect external EU borders. Financially, the burden has been substantial. As an EU member state at the external frontier, Greece has relied heavily on European funding to support reception centers, asylum procedures, and border security upgrades. Billions of euros have flowed into infrastructure, humanitarian assistance, and operational costs over the past decade. Yet the pressure on local communities, particularly on islands with small permanent populations, has been acute. Greece, like many European nations, faces population decline and aging, but the intensity of arrivals has often outpaced integration capacity. While Poland distinguished sharply between irregular migration and labor-driven legal entry, Greece's role has frequently been that of a transit country. Many asylum seekers have sought to move onward to other EU states, drawn by family ties or economic opportunity elsewhere. This dynamic has complicated burden-sharing discussions within the European Union.
Each one of us can move the problem to another. And we understand it, and we do all agree on it, also Hungary and Poland. And that is what Italy brought to this council.
Comparing Poland and Greece reveals both parallels and contrasts. Both have constructed physical barriers and invested in surveillance technology. Both have deployed significant security forces to guard their frontiers. Both have faced accusations from human rights organizations regarding treatment of migrants. Yet the origins and narratives surrounding their crises diverge. Poland framed its situation as a targeted destabilization campaign orchestrated by Belarus. Greece's challenge has been more closely linked to regional conflict and long-standing migration routes through Turkey. The 2016 EU-Turkey statement significantly reduced arrivals for a period, but flows have never fully ceased. This ongoing nature makes sustained management rather than singular crisis response the defining feature of Greece's approach. European policy has gradually evolved in response to these frontline pressures. The new Pact on Migration and Asylum seeks to streamline procedures, strengthen external border management, and distribute responsibilities more evenly among member states. Yet implementation remains complex. Countries in Central and Eastern Europe have often resisted mandatory relocation quotas, emphasizing sovereignty and national control. Southern states, including Greece and Italy, have called for greater solidarity, arguing that geography alone should not determine disproportionate responsibility.
Strong and effective policy of assimilation as possible, and not allowing ghettos like which I saw around the German cities or around the French cities, ghettos of illegal migrants where police has no access to. This is beyond my imagination, because it shouldn't be like in a sovereign state. And my second point is that within the European Union, I was not agreeing on the migration pact.
In this broader context, Poland's decisive clampdown has influenced debates about deterrence and enforcement. Advocates argue that firm control of external borders reduces incentives for dangerous journeys and disrupts smuggling networks. Critics caution that restrictive policies can push migrants toward riskier routes, increasing human suffering without addressing root causes. Greece's maritime experience underscores this tension. When land borders are fortified, sea crossings may intensify. When patrols increase, smugglers adapt. Human stories remain at the center of these policy discussions. Families fleeing conflict, economic hardship, or political repression often find themselves navigating opaque systems and shifting regulations. At the same time, residents of border regions confront rapid demographic change and uncertainty. Greece, too, has expanded legal pathways and integration programs, though the transit dynamic complicates long-term planning. Both countries illustrate that migration management in the 21st century requires not only fences and patrols, but administrative efficiency, labor market planning, and diplomatic engagement. Looking ahead, climate change, regional instability, and demographic imbalances suggest that migration pressures will persist. The European Union's challenge is to craft a coherent approach that addresses security concerns while upholding humanitarian standards. Poland's experience demonstrates that rapid reductions in irregular crossings are possible with concentrated effort and investment. Greece's trajectory highlights the endurance of migration routes and the necessity of sustained coordination among member states.
It's time to end the failed experiment of open borders. You have to end it now. See, I can tell you. I'm really good at this stuff. Your countries are going to hell. In America, we've taken bold action to swiftly shut down uncontrolled migration. Once we started detaining and deporting everyone who crossed the border and removing illegal aliens from the United States, they simply stopped coming. They're not coming anymore. We're getting a lot of credit, but they're not coming anymore.
Ultimately, the story unfolding along Europe's borders is not solely about barriers or boats. It is about the evolving identity of the continent itself, how it defines solidarity, sovereignty, and responsibility in an interconnected world. From the forests near Belarus to the shores of the Aegean, decisions made in moments of crisis reverberate for years. They shape domestic politics, influence international relations, and determine the lived reality of countless individuals seeking safety or opportunity. As Europe continues to refine its migration framework, the experiences of Poland and Greece will remain reference points in policy discussions. The debate is far from settled. What is clear is that migration, once treated as a temporary emergency, has become a structural feature of European politics. The methods chosen to address it, whether steel fences in dense forests or patrol boats in open seas, reveal not only strategic calculations, but deeper values about security, solidarity, and the meaning of belonging in a changing world.